Okay, so hello guys, no? Good day and welcome, no? Again to our lecture on economic development. So today we are going to discuss our final no module sa aton nga klase. So the module 6, no? So our module 6 is entitled business cycles, unemployment and inflation. Okay, so business cycles, unemployment, and inflation. Okay, so um, for sure, some of you know have already heard no some parang terms no nga ginagamit na or some of you no have already heard about unemployment, inflation, no business cycles, no. So today, no, we are going to discuss some basic, no, some basic functions or some basic terms, no, nga ginagamit ina nga mga words sa economic or economics. Okay? So let's start on the potential versus real GDP. So we have already discussed no sa aton nga mga previous modules ang ginatawag nga GDP or the gross domestic product, no. It is like a measurement of how well or how good no an economy of a certain country is. Okay, so may duha gali na siya ka klase, no? May ara na siya ginatawag nga potential GDP or the real GDP, no? Whereas the potential GDP, no, is the output of an economy along the smooth path of growth which assumes no strains on production or unused resources. So potential GDP is measured in inflation adjusted dollars like real GDP, and the rate at which it rises is the potential growth rate. Now, when we say potential growth rate, no, it means it is not yet the real or the actual GDP, but it's like the future, no, or what is the direction of the current state of an economy. And when we say of potential GDP, no, it is measured based on the actual or the real GDP, and increase siya based on ginatawag nga growth rate, no. Now, it is assumed no under sa potential GDP nga parang parang ang economy is parang walang flaws, no? Walang strain, no? Walang wastages, walang unused resources, no? Amo na siya ang potential GDP. It's like a positive or an optimistic side of the GDP. Whereas the real GDP is the actual or what is the actual amount of ginatawag nga GDP. Right? So a potential growth rate naman kuno is a driven factor, of course, in measuring potential GDP. Now, a potential growth rate is driven by factors like the growth of labor force, no, availability of better educated and more highly skilled workers. No, kasi the more skilled workers and the more educated ang mga parang citizen of that certain country, no, if collectively kung parang i-accumulate mo ng tanan-tanan, no, it will generate a domino effect in the economy. Kasi kung taas ang education, no, mataas ang sweldo on that certain country, syempre damo ang maengganyo, manubo ang parang unemployment, kumbaga almost tanan may trabaho, no. It is one of those driven force, no, in a very good and a better economy, right? So continue, no, so investment in physical capital, availability of raw materials, and increase in knowledge, no. Now the difference between the difference between the real GDP and the potential GDP is what we call the output gap, no. So the output gap kuno is a difference between the real and potential GDP. So the output gap is negative, no, if ang real GDP kuno is less than the potential GDP, no. Negative siya kung mas manubo ang real, no, compared sa potential GDP, and positive naman if ang real GDP is mas mataas compared to those that potential GDP. Alright? Kasi kung mas mataas ang real sa potential GDP, mas mataas ang actual sa supposed to be future, no? Future or parang optimistic part ng GDP, edi mas better siya, di ba? Kasi mas taas ang actual niya eh. So the real GDP can be lower than the potential GDP if there are unused resources in the economy, no? Kasi ang balaton kagina, a potential GDP is like the perfect, no, the perfect economy nga wala wastages, tanan nga resources nagagamit, no? Parang wala sang strain in production, wala mga bottleneck production, nga inang do parang hectic tanan, no? Parang smooth, no? Amo na siyang potential, no? That's why mas manubo ang real ko, no, ang real GDP compared to potential GDP if damo unused resources in an economy, such as workers who don't have jobs, unemployed, no, or workers who have jobs that don't use their education, or mga underemployed, no, inang mga hindi aligned ang ilang education sa ilang current work, no, parang mina siya. Right? So let's proceed to what we call unemployment. So what is unemployment, no? When real GDP drops below potential GDP, it means economic activity has slowed, no? And companies lay off workers or just don't hire. As a result, more workers become unemployed. That is, they don't have jobs, no? But they are actively looking for work. And unemployment is a key measure of the ups and downs of an economy. Yes, no? Kasi if too much ang unemployment, no, kung mas taas ang unemployment rate, edi bad din yan sa economy. The same as if nubo gid ang unemployment rate, may mga negative effects man siya sa economy, no? And one nga parang measurement, no, in recognizing if an economy is doing good or bad is the unemployment rate. Kasi no, if an economy is low, no, and parang ang GDP is manubo, kasi nami-measure ng GDP gani ang activity ni economy. Now, meaning sina ang economy is not doing good, no, and because of that, businesses tends to lay off workers, or they just don't hire, no, ang balde. Wala sila nagadugang tawo, wala, and most likely lay off. The same with ang natabo during the COVID pandemic, di ba? Because of that pandemic, the economy becomes too slow, no? Yung growth niya very very slow during that lockdown, and because of that lockdown, many lost their jobs, no? If makita niyo na gani sa mga news, no, sa social media, many have lost their jobs, many have been laid off by their company because of that slow gani nga growth sa economy, kay tungod sina nagaka-incur sila losses, no? And in order to reduce that losses, no, kinahanglan nila mag-laid off sang ilang employees. Okay, so the labor force, no, is the sum of the employed workers in the unemployed workers. Labor force ang parang tanan-tanan nga capable, no, is a total of tanan nga capable citizens to work, no, kasi i-add mo ang employed plus unemployed workers. Kasi ang unemployed, they are capable, but wala lang sila current job, no, nga ginaobra. The unemployment rate is the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed, no? Note that unemployment doesn't count people who are not looking for jobs, nor people who are not working because they are going to school or taking care of their children, no? The unemployment rate also doesn't count underemployed, no? Whereas underemployment, who are working part-time because they can't find a full-time job, or inang mga hindi aligned ang ilang mga ang education nila compared to those the actual nga ginatrabaho nila, no. Hindi man din siguro na dalang unemployment rate inang may mga businesses or inang mga nag-create employment. Okay? Next, so there are different types of unemployment, no. First is the frictional unemployment. This is just a common unemployment, no. It is the periods of temporary lang nga unemployment that corresponds to short-term gaps between jobs. Kasi when we say of frictional unemployment, na tanan kita sina nagaagi frictional unemployment. Kasi once we graduated sa aton nga college, hindi tanan no or hindi man insigida nagkakaroon sang stable jobs or actual jobs, di ba? And because of that, no, naga-create na siya sa ginatawag ng frictional unemployment, but it is not bad kasi temporary lang naman na siya, no? And after some time, syempre once ka naka-apply na, so tumatama naman siya nga naga-iban, right? So the next kind of unemployment is the structural unemployment, no? When we say of structural, no, occurs when there is a mismatch between the skills of an unemployed workers and the needs of employers with unfilled jobs, like that, no, na gani ng may mismatch between sa kung ano ang kaya ni worker sa kung ano ang ginapangita ni employer to complete or to fulfill the job needed for their company, no. And because of that, naga-create siya sang unemployment. Next is the cyclical, which is the parang siya medyo mabugat ng unemployment because it is the large jumps in unemployment tied directly to slowdown in an economic growth inang mga capables. Kasi kung pag-graduate mo 3 years na nga pinangita ay trabaho and wala ka man Japon makita or wala ka may masudlan nga trabaho, then you belong here, no, sa ginatawag na cyclical unemployment because you do not have that capacity to work, no, and to contribute to the economy. Pero kung like mga self-employed ka, you are not counted as unemployed. All right. Next, the trade-off between unemployment and inflation. Ano ba ang relationship between that unemployment and inflation, no? Of course, you are already aware what is an inflation, no? Kasi when we say of inflation, it is the rise of prices, no, of goods and services sa isa ka country, no. So the higher the inflation rate, the bad, no, mas kala in an economy. All right. So what will happen if the actual GDP is higher than the potential GDP, no? So as actual GDP rises above potential GDP, economic activity increases. Of course, kay mas mataas ang actual sa potential, no? Ang economic activity nagataas and ang unemployment rate naganubo, no? Amo nang balko kagina nga mas kung ganubo ang unemployment rate, hindi man na siya good in every aspect, no? Kasi also that's good, no, but the problem with increased economic activities that inflation can rise. Why, no? Bakit magataas ang inflation? Because prices, no, because of that economic activity nga increase, no, the prices and the wages, the price of the goods, the wages or the salary of the employed, no, can start increasing at a faster rate. Why? Ngaman gataas siya, no? Why is high GDP and low unemployment linked to inflation, no? If the number of unemployed workers is low, so meaning gamay ang gapangita trabaho, it is hard for employers to find people to fill the job. Okay? Kumbaga gamay na lang ang wala trabaho, tanan na may trabaho. So anong matatabo, no? Anong matabo? So as a result, workers feel they have more power to ask, no, for an increase in their salary, no, and those wage increase, no, drive up cost for the companies and force them to raise prices. Why? No, kasi kung ang mga kung ang mga employees maga-demand sang higher nga salary or higher nga parang sweldo nila, and kay tungod gani gataas ang economic rate, kay kumbaga di ba pasok naman si demand and supply, no, gamay lang ang supply, damo ang demand sang workers, hindi nagataas ang presyo nila, no, and because of that, those companies, no, nga nag-hire and nag-produce goods and services, they will also, no, forced to increase the price of their goods and services kay tungod nagtaas man ang salary, and because of that, no, ang inflation rate maga-increase man kay nag-increase sila sang prices nila. Right? So next, the natural rate of unemployment. Now, the natural rate of unemployment is the level at which inflation is more or less stable, no? Kasi inflation exists, no? But inflation should be controlled, no, and must be at a stable rate, no, para hindi siya maka-affect todo on the economy. And the number one agency, no, a government agency nga naga-control of that inflation is the Bangko Sentral, right? And when the unemployment rate is below the natural rate, no, inflation tends to increase. And when the unemployment rate is above the natural rate, inflation tends to fall. Right? So the same, no? The same principles ng kagina. Next, recessions. What is a recession, no? Recession is like a cycle, no, of an economy. So if a downward deviation from potential growth rate becomes bad enough, an economy can actually shrink, no? And a recession is defined as a significant decline in economic activity spread across an economy lasting for more than a few months up to ako magdugay pagid siya para nagkakaroon siya sa ginatawag nga depression, no? Kasi depression can also tungod sina ga-create siya sang panang low and unstable nga economic activity. Okay, so the business cycle, although all recessions are different, all display similar patterns. No? This pattern of recession is known as the business cycle, right? So in a business cycle, mayroon sa sang ginatawag nga peak, pinaka-highest niya, ang through, and the expansion. So what is a peak? No? The peak is the date on which a recession starts. So that's when the economy hits a high point and starts heading downward. No? Actually, you can also, if you are in a stock market, no, kung nag-invest sa stock market, you can relate to this. No? Also in mga economic terms, no, makaka-relate ka man di kay whatever kuno that goes high, very very high, no, pag-abot siya sa peak niya, wala siya ibang nga direction but to go down, no. The same with dito sa aton nga economy. Next, once nga nag-abot siya sa peak, then nag-down siya padaog, next nga step will be the through. The through is the date on which the recession ends and the economy starts heading up again. From the top, pakato siya sa bottom, then parang nag-straight line siya, nag-stable siya, then amo na siya ginatawag na through, no? The next step after the through is the expansion. The expansion is the time from the through the recovery and all the way to the next peak, no? From peak nanaog siya, parang nag-stable siya, no? Then goes up again. Namo na siya ang parang business cycle. Cycle kay tungod gabalik-balik na siya. Right? Next, impact of recession. So, what is the impact of recession? No, so what is the impact of recession? No, so on workers, the unemployed workers and their families suffer the most pain. Okay, why? Right? Okay, so because those do not have savings, no, inang mga employees nga sakto lang, no, ang ilang nga ginatrabaho, no, they are more prone, no, they are more prone to recession, no, kasi inang mga wala savings, wala investments, they are the most affected. Okay, from an economic, political, and human point of view, a lengthy and deep recession can be a major disaster for individuals who lost their jobs. Kasi kung wala ka ng trabaho because of that recession, wala ka trabaho for several months, edi gutom ka, di ba? So they are the most vulnerable. No? The reason is simple. During a recession, if you lose your job, it's hard to find a new one. So as the economy shrinks, factories close and companies stop hiring. And even a recession can take over months or years for the labor market to revive. No? So kung in that time nga wala ka trabaho, it's very hard, right? So on businesses naman, no, on the other hand, recessions hurt businesses as well as workers. So as an economy slows, the demand schedules of businesses shift to the left. For the same price, the quantity demand fails. So ganubo ang supply, ganubo ang demand, and therefore quantity supplied also falls. Right? And because of that, naganubo ang demand, naganubo ang supply. Hindi nagkakaroon, wala na sang market, no, hindi sila maka-generate sang income. So next, no, why do recessions happen? Nga man may recession, number one, may negative supply, no, shift. One significant cause of recession is an unexpected negative supply shift, which moves the supply curve to the left for a broad array of markets. Nung parang kakaroon sang sudden change of the quantity supplied, nagdubo siya bigla, no? So nagkakaroon ng recessions. Why? Because nubo ang supply, wala na may ka-create sang goods and services. Wala na, baklon ang tao. The same with the negative demand. A sudden and unexpected drop in demand can also cause recession. Imagine, no, if an economy bigla na lang one day wala na may mabakal ng mga tao, no? Wala na sila kwarta, wala na may mabakal. So wala na sang money nga maga-circulate or maga-flow into the economy. Di ano 'yan, it's bad, no? It's bad for an economy kasi wala na sang ginatawag na economic activity. Next is inflation fighting, no? If output rounds above potential for too long, the economy overheats and inflation rises. Motong kagina, no? Taas ang GDP, manubo ang unemployment. If that happens, economy policymakers have to make inflation fighting steps to slow growth. And because of that, kay inubuon nila ang pag-growth, no? I-try nila i-slow ang growth ng economy, hindi may recession, no? Kung too much ang pag-slow nila, hindi may recession. And last, no, but is also the common cause of a recession. May ginatawag na problem in financial markets or ang ginatawag na financial market crash, no, or market economy crash, no, do something na stock market crashes, no, then dako ang chance nga magkakaroon sang recession, no. Financial markets let individuals and businesses to borrow money to finance everything from homes and cars to college education. So if the financial markets stop working, it becomes harder to borrow. Because of that, mabudlay mag-utang. The economy will slow and a Great Depression was caused. And because of that, a recession will happen. No? And if too much recession, may sinatawag the Great Depression, no? Itong the Great Depression bala on America yata 'yon, di ba? Itong time ba lang nga ginasunog na lang nila kay almost wala na value ang money nila. So the Great Depression was caused in part by problems in financial markets. Kung mag-crash ang financial markets. Okay, so that would be all for this meeting. I hope no you have gained something and continue to answer the modules or activity nga ginpaansaran ko sa inyo. So thank you for listening and God bless us all. Thank you everyone.